So right over here, we have the recipe for super cake, which you want to make for your guests that are coming over for dinner tonight. But this recipe right over here, this is for 32 people. This would serve 32 folks. But you only have 16 guests coming over. So if you only have 16 guests coming over, what should be your ingredients here? Or how much of each of these ingredients should you have? And I encourage you to pause the video and think about it. All right. So right now we're going to think about, well, we're going to have a slightly smaller super cake. Smaller super cake. And you might have reasoned that, look, if we're going to have half as many guests, then each of the ingredients we should just have half as much. And you would be right. Instead of 8 eggs for our smaller super cake, you could have 4 eggs. Instead of 6 cups of flour in our smaller super cake, you could have 3 cups of flour. Instead of 6 cups of sugar, you could have 3 cups of sugar. I'm just taking half of each of these numbers. Instead of 2 cups of butter, you could have 1 cup of butter. Instead of 6 teaspoons of baking soda, you could have 3 teaspoons of baking soda. And last but not least, instead of 2 cups of water, you could have 1 cup of water. Now, this will work, and this is actually how you should adjust recipes. But there's something interesting about what's similar about these two recipes. The recipe for the main super cake that feeds 32 people, and the recipe for the smaller super cake. And that's the notion of ratios. The ratios between ingredients, or the ratio of how much of an ingredient you need for a given guest. So, for example, you can see here that for every 8 eggs, you have 6 cups of flour. So let me write this down. So for every 8 eggs, we have 6 cups of flour. We have 6 cups of flour, which can be expressed as a ratio of the ratio of eggs to flour is 8 to 6, which is once again interpreted as for every 8 eggs, I have 6 cups of flour. If I said for every 6 cups of flour, I have 8 eggs, I would have written 6 to 8. So the order here matters. But here I'm saying the ratio of eggs to flour, of eggs to cups of flour, is 8 to 6. For every 8 eggs, I have 6 cups of flour. Well, what about for the smaller cake? Well, here, for every 4 eggs, we have 3 cups of flour. We have 3 cups of flour. So what would this ratio be? Well, for every 4 eggs, we have 3 cups of flour. So the ratio of eggs to flour is 4 to 3. Now, it turns out that these are the exact same ratio. If you have 8 eggs for every 6 cups of flour, or for every 8 eggs you have 6 cups of flour, that's the same thing as for every 4 eggs you have 3 cups of flour. What you're just doing is taking each of these numbers and you are dividing it by 2. So you could say the ratio in either case, the ratio of eggs to flour, let me write this down, the ratio of eggs to 2 cups of flour, let me write it, 2 cups of flour, in either case is 4 eggs for every 3 cups of flour. This is going to be true for either recipe. You have the same ratio. If you have 8 eggs here, so for every 4 eggs you have 3 cups of flour, well, that means you're going to have 6 cups of flour. And so this is why ratios are helpful. This recipe has a different number of eggs, a different number of cups of flour, a different number of cups of sugar, but the ratios between the ingredients are the same. And so you will be able to have a cake that tastes the same, that essentially is the same cake, but just is a different size.